As far as I know, there's no such thing as a classic Hunan cauliflower recipe. This is original, but it's based on the flavors and methods of Hunan cuisine, which is one of the most spicy hot foods in the world. You can reduce the chilies in this, or cut out the membranes if you don't want it burning hot. Be warned that the way the recipe is written here, it is very hot. You can also make this completely vegetarian by leaving out the shrimp paste, but it's better to add something else in place of it. Here are all of the ingredients except the salt and pepper, which I'm not going to bother showing you. This is the vodka chili sauce made in the other video. There's a link here for getting to that. This is the brown sugar, turmeric, a large cinnamon stick, star anise, shrimp paste. This is Lecum Keys shrimp paste, which is a really good brand. You can make this without the shrimp paste. Especially if you're actually adding shrimp to it, it'll be just fine. It adds even more umami richness to it if you use the shrimp paste. But if you don't, you can add some MSG and actual shrimp. It'll still come out okay. Shrimp paste may be hard to find depending on where you are. This is peanut oil, red onion. It's going to be used at the end. A couple of chilies. These are big red ones. They're not especially hot, but you don't want to use really mild ones that are like bell pepper, nor do you want to use ones that are searing hot, because then it'll just overpower everything else. So try to find ones that are medium hot, like Hatch chilies or serranos. If serranos vary a lot, though, sometimes serranos are too hot. A couple limes for the juice, garlic, ginger, which I'm going to show something about in a minute, shallots, and often in most of the time in Southeast Asia, when they call for onions, what they really mean is shallots. So whenever you see that in a recipe, you see onions in a Malaysian recipe, their onion is a shallot. Also cilantro. Now, when you got cilantro, you got a root end, a stem end rather, and the leaves. What you want to do is you want to divide this in this recipe, and you're going to use all the roots in the first part of the recipe and the leaves in the second part. We'll get to that in a minute. And then finally, the cauliflower itself, which I'll show how to cut this up in just a minute too. Simple trick for peeling the ginger. Don't use a knife and start slicing the skin off, because you're just wasting half of the ginger. Just take the edge of a spoon like this and just run it down with a little bit of pressure. All the peel will come right off for you, just like that. When it comes to cutting the cauliflower, just take a knife and cut it into slices. There's going to be a lot of fragments that fall off of it. You want it about 1/4 of an inch thick. Don't worry about these fragments. You're going to scoop them up and you're going to use them. But you want pieces like this too that are in there. And as it cooks and it breaks down, it will become kind of mixed in with the shrimp, and it kind of fools you into thinking you're eating more shrimp than you are. Even though if you look at it and actually think about it, you can see a lot of it's cauliflower. But this is the psychology behind it, behind a lot of Asian dishes. You want the vegetables to imitate the meat in some way so that it feels like you're eating more protein than you are. I'm going to put one more. You got to get about 300 grams in all. And if you get like a heavy piece like this, it's got a lot of the stem end in it, then just take a knife and get rid of that, because this won't break up. This is not going to be good. Okay, now I have to weigh it. Then when you have about 300 grams, you may have some larger pieces like this, and if they're real large, you can break them up ahead of time like this now, and this will help them be more shrimp-like. If they're too big and they make it all the way through the cooking process, then you got something that's going to be too big for your fork. So this is what you want. Pieces like this. That's it. Perfect. Okay, I've been heating this pan on medium-high, about 7 out of 10, for a couple minutes. It's not madly hot, but it's a little bit hot. As you can see, some sizzling going on here. That's the puree from the stick blender. Here's the red chilies. Now, in Hunan cuisine, they would cut these much thicker. It'd be giant chunks. Malaysian, it's usually thinner. I'm kind of in between the two here. Now I'm adding also the cinnamon and the star anise to this, and I'm gonna, it's already sizzling here, so I'm gonna reduce the heat down from 7 to 6, just over medium, and let it cook for just a couple minutes. It's been about 2.5 minutes now. You can, if you look carefully, you can see the oil is just starting to separate from the rest of the mixture. That's really what you're waiting for. Now the cauliflower goes in, and we're going to mix this around a little bit to make sure that the cauliflower is all evenly coated, and cook it for about another 3 minutes, just like this. Make sure that all of the cauliflower pieces are coated with the seasoning. When 3 minutes is up, I'm going to add about 30 milliliters, about 1 ounce of water, put the lid on it, and then reduce the heat down to medium, 5 out of 1 to 10. And now we begin counting 7 minutes of cooking time. And when the 7 minutes is up, take the lid off. Now we need to dry it out a little bit. That cauliflower exuded some moisture. We're going to cook this down a little bit, make sure that the cauliflower is tender, and also eliminate any extra moisture. And it's also during this time that we can get this cinnamon stick and star anise out of there. We're going to go fishing for it. It's in here somewhere. There it is. Okay. And you just have to kind of feel with the end of whatever you're stirring with to see if it feels soft enough. I'm going to give it another minute here. Also, some point during this, add another tablespoon of cilantro and the rest of the lime juice. Now we're getting very close here. Basically now we just need to cook this until the cauliflower is sufficiently tender, which isn't going to be long. Another minute, maybe at the most another minute, and just a little bit drier. So I just added that lime juice. Then we're going to begin plating it up. And I have it on a plate. I'm using the vodka chili elixir. It says no vinegar added to it. It's not the hot sauce. It's the elixir, because you need the sweetness to balance the rest of this dish. A little bit more. Then the rest of the cilantro. And some chopped red onion. And a little bit more. I'm very pleased to announce the release of Volume 3, The Focus on Food Chemistry. I want to clear up a few things about these 3 volumes. First, they all contain completely different information. There's no duplication, they're not revisions. When I wrote Volume 1, I had 2.5 years of YouTube videos to cover. People had been asking me for the printed list of ingredients for all of those dishes, and so I obliged. There are recipes with stepwise directions and many tips offered throughout, as well as an extensive history of Russian cuisine over the last 1,000 years, but Volume 1 is very different from Volume 2 and 3. In Volumes 2 and 3, I only had about 9 months of YouTube recipes to cover in each, so I was able to provide stepwise directions for everything. In Volume 2, I included a lot of additional information about cooking and some simple examples of flavor chemistry to set the stage for Volume 3. While Volume 2 hopefully got you thinking about some of the processes that go on in cooking and how flavors are expressed and sensed at the molecular level, the topic was painted with pretty broad strokes to make it easy to digest, pun intended. Volume 3 is a milestone of the series, in which I have included an entire introductory course in food chemistry, which is why Volume 3 is about 70 pages longer than Volume 2. If you just want the recipes, that's okay too. You don't have to read the first few chapters. But if you've ever been curious about what influences tastes and flavors and the rationale for deciding cooking times and temperatures and why things taste different when they're combined in different ways, this book will answer many of those questions. It also paves the way for Volume 4, which will be next year.
If you want to know more about my adventures as a chef around the world and have some great laughs along the way, be sure to check out the video tour of my book, 40 Years in One Night. It's up on YouTube right now. Click the link.
Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.